Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting here with Dustin Zimmerman, and we're going to be going over the Week 11 recap for college football and then the Week 12 look ahead, talking about some of these big games that have happened. A lot of teams going down this week. There were actually some really good games from this last weekend that got played out. We saw some juggernauts going down, big SEC games and stuff like that. So it was fun.
Yep. And we had a good week of Super Dogs, which we'll touch on too for our more personal picks.
Actually, 4-0 this week. So if
3-1.
Yeah, you're right. Dang it.
Unfortunately.
No, barely.
But we'll talk about that one.
But yeah, so to start it off, guys, we just want to pay some tribute real quick. Ben, so this is, rest in peace, Ben Herbstreit. Ben is the dog on the screen. Ben has been with the College Game Day crew for, I don't know, 5-6 years.
Several years
Yeah,
now
5 or
that
6
Kirk was
years, I
bringing him
think.
on.
And he's been a staple. We actually saw him at the Austin College Game Day with Kirk at the beginning of the show and stuff like that. So he's been, a big deal, and it's tough to see because not only with Ben, but also, I believe that this is probably Lee Corso's last year.
I hope so.
So
I love Lee Corso, but it's time.
Yeah, exactly.
Let him go out. Give him a farewell tour this year. He can't even make it through a whole episode.
Right.
Love the guy, but want him to go out strong.
So I see this kind of, Kirk is just losing his left-hand man and his right-hand man at the same time.
Yeah.
So it will be a different year next year for College Game Day, in my opinion. We're going to have, of course, Pat McAfee has taken on and Nick Saban have jumped into the fold, but we're going to be losing.
Nick Saban.
Yeah, no, he's been great, but we're going to be losing some of the legends, and we just wanted to talk about this because this is just you got to kind of bring this up and talk about it and go over it. But
well, as a alum from a school where a dog essentially is
Both of
our
us.
highest ranking member,
fair.
yeah. So definitely wanted to pay my respects as well. So
Yeah, we talk about Texas State on here a lot. I went to Texas State for my graduate school, but for my undergrad, I actually played at a small school in Texas called TOU, and we were the Bulldogs, and we had a Bulldog. So Dustin over there for A&M also.
Reveille. So
So let's get on to it, though. Last week's AP Top 25, we had a lot of movement. When we pull up the actual the new ones, you're going to see a lot of green and red. Some teams have fallen a lot, and some teams have just kind of moved up 1 or 2 spots. But we'll show that off here in a second.
this was the one I've been most excited for all year.
This week?
Yep. For one team who's about to drop, I could not be more excited as I was typing up the notes
Oh my
for the
God.
show.
Okay, well let's get into it. Here's some game recaps. I wonder if they're on this page. I know exactly who you're talking about now.
They are on here.
Okay, well let's start with the game of the week, which was the Georgia Bulldogs versus the Ole Miss Rebels in Oxford. We picked this game exactly how we expected it to go. Basically, what are you showing me?
The Georgia Tech score up there.
Oh, I
I
see.
noticed.
Yes, that was last week's score. I apologize.
Unfortunately, you just wanted to take a dig at me real fast because that was the score of the A&M South Carolina game.
Oh, I did not switch that. I apologize. That is actually really funny. Yeah, my bad. But looking at the Georgia versus
Fix that in a minute.
Ole Miss game, we picked this game exactly as we thought it would go. Carson Beck looked bad again. The offense couldn't move the ball. 10 points is just terrible for them, especially when they're supposed to be a powerhouse defense, but at the same time, like we used to think of them as just defense. Now, Last year they had a lot of offense and offensive power. Well, we thought that was going to roll into this year, and it just did not.
Especially with the addition of ETN to that team, I thought their running game would get a step up after getting him in the transfer portal, and he's played well.
Right.
But he definitely hasn't made the spark immediate impact. A lot of people, I'm assuming a lot of people, myself included. And again, Carson Beck just continues to have more turnovers than good plays.
Yeah, it's been a really tough go of it. They'd have. I also blame a little bit on the receivers. Like they have no receivers that I'm like, oh, that guy has done really well. They literally have no one in the receiving core that has just like been the staple player. They had Ladd McConkey in the past. They had Brock Bowers in the past.
Right.
Well, they bring in Benjamin Urasek at tight end, and then they have Oscar Delp. Well, they haven't done anything. And then you look at the receivers across the board. There's just no help there. So right now it is Trevor Etienne and Carson Beck trying to figure out what to do at quarterback. So, they're they're going to have a hard time getting into the SEC championship, I believe. So that'll be an interesting conversation we could have. We could have 7 2-loss SEC teams. So we'll get into that
Yeah.
a little later on. But next up, the Miami, excuse me, Miami Hurricanes losing to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, 23-28. I fixed it up there on the board, as you can
There we
see
go.
now. That game was, I was so overdue. It was just
Yep.
so overdue.
It was about time.
Thank
It
God.
was-
You told me, I think an hour before the game, that Haynes King was starting, and I was
Yes.
like, it's finally here.
Yes.
You know, like
I
because
said on the show last week, I was disappointed because Haynes King was out, and if he was gonna be back and able to play, they had a chance.
yes,
And he didn't really play quarterback. He
Mm.
played the we don't actually throw the football forward. We're in the 1920s offense.
He's
but
he's my favorite Wildcat quarterback this year.
how about that freshman though, Aaron Philo?
Yeah.
He came in and was throwing darts.
Yep, this game was actually a lot of fun to watch at the end.
Yeah.
Miami has gotten down in every game this year, basically down
They've
by
got
double
three
digit
double-digit second half comebacks.
wins. Yeah,
That were wins, right?
this one was not a win. They were down by 12, 16 to
Yep. It would
28.
have been their fourth.
It would have been their
which is
fourth.
insane.
They almost came back, of course, as you could tell by the score.
Yeah.
This was a fourth quarter, 5 minute left type of touchdown.
Yep.
And then couldn't figure out a way to get past those DBs. Cam Ward was kind of held in check, but it was more so the DBs for Georgia Tech were making great tackles. I thought that
They
they
were.
looked really after coming
Yeah.
downhill when after a catch. They did not let extra
Yeah.
yards and stuff like that. Xavier Restrepo was basically held to nothing until his big touchdown catch.
Right.
So
that one bad drive in the second half, which is what made it a one-score game.
mhm.
Outside of that, their man coverage was really good on the outside too.
yeah,
This
this is
with Restrepo holding him in check.
Georgia Tech. Obviously, we thought they might be pretty good after beating Florida State. That was just not a thing that mattered at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
But they
that
all
was not the prover. This
no,
one was. though.
yeah. I was gonna say they are actually a very good team, and we were
Yeah.
hoping Haynes King was playing because we needed Miami to lose.
Yes.
I just couldn't take a undefeated Miami
No.
team being a number 3 seed, and like getting a cakewalk
Yeah.
into the playoffs. So they had to lose sooner or later. They still might lose another game if they have to play SMU in the conference championship. They could lose the game before that because they're not that good.
Right.
So,
Nope.
um,
We still don't like Miami for anyone who hasn't somehow figured that out yet.
it's not that I dislike Miami. They're just overrated, and they were being number 4, jumping Texas last week was just
Yeah.
ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
And then I do want to give a shout out to Cameron on this game because he has been on the Alabama train since since they lost their second game. He thought that Alabama would make the playoffs. He needed a little bit of chaos. Well, just look at the screen. The chaos is here.
Oh yeah.
And so Alabama beats LSU 42-13. Just decisive win. LSU has looked awful after losing to Texas A&M 2 weeks ago, then going on by. Garrett Nussmeier cannot figure out how to go through reads and things like that. So
Turns out you pressure him at all, and he can't throw it. If he has a pocket,
Oh.
he's got one of the best arms in the country.
yes, he can't move that well.
And Bama basically just did what A&M did in the second half. They said, we have a quarterback who's really fast. You, for whatever reason, can't read an option, so we're just going to run it with him.
Yep.
And they did. And Jalen Milroe basically was a track athlete on Saturday.
We know the issues with LSU. It's their defense, in my opinion. Like their defense is lackluster at best, and things that they'll have to fix coming into next week. I don't remember who they play. Let me see. They play against Florida. They're at Florida next week, so that's even not a comfortable game with how they're playing right now. They should dominate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they will. So
Yeah, well, Florida didn't have a great performance this past weekend.
no,
With again, Lagway ended up being out, so they had a walk on as their starting quarterback.
right. So it's
That's
just
what it is. But
Blagway and Graham Mertz.
well, Mertz has been out, but yeah, Lagway's now out, and not sure when he'll come back or if they're just going to let him rest the rest of the year at this point.
Exactly. And then let's get over to recap of Week 11. You'll see that the changes have been made. Here is the Week 12 updates. As you can see, everybody basically has a color around them because there are multiple teams that dropped 7, 8, and 9 positions. I will let you start on our AP rapid fire.
Yeah. And real quick before we do, the reason we do the AP polls is because we film this on Mondays, and the college football playoff rankings don't come out till Tuesday.
Right.
So that's why this is going to look a little bit different if you do compare. And I think ESPN's now using the college football playoff rankings like
Right.
on TV.
Yeah.
So numbers might look a little bit different. That's why. To start, though, not much to say about Oregon. They're still really good. They have earned that number one spot and will probably hold that all the way to the conference championship game.
Yep.
So we'll just see what they do. Their next game is against Maryland. I don't see them having any issues winning that one.
No. They beat Maryland. You meant at
Oh,
Wisconsin.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
Wisconsin
just
is.
beat Maryland. Yes.
Yes.
And then Ohio State still dominant. They get to, I believe they play Northwestern, and
Theirs
then
is at Northwestern.
yeah, that's going to be a. I mean, that's not a terrible. Northwestern is actually pretty good. I believe it's Ohio State minus 30 though, so that wouldn't.
It's a pretty big
Yeah.
spread.
Northwestern hasn't been terrible, but they're definitely going to win that game, and then they'll get to play Indiana the next week, which
That
will be
one's
a
been
very,
exciting
very fun
for.
game. We'll learn a lot about Indiana, who we're about to talk about.
Yeah, Ohio State's 29.5 point favorites right now at the time
Gotcha.
of this.
And then the next team on the board, just kind of, at 3 here, Texas. It's Arkansas is good and when they want to be good.
So say they're either really good or really bad.
Right. And
Um,
it's just a weird situation with them. But if they are going to be good against Texas, I think it could be an interesting game back and forth.
and this one is in Pig Country. They are at Arkansas for this one.
Gotcha.
So their last home games, they beat Mississippi State by 33, which is more than Georgia and A&M beat Mississippi State by. Beat Auburn, and then sorry, no, I'm reading those backwards. Their last home game was Ole Miss, which they got dominated in
Yes.
by 32. So Ole Miss has obviously come out and looked a lot better since their loss to Kentucky, which we kind of expected. It's going to be interesting to see which Arkansas team shows up.
Yeah. And I was going to say Taylor Green has an injury, but he is going to play. He was expected. I believe earlier today that he was going to be in for the game this weekend. So, and then Penn State just beat Washington pretty handedly. They are going up against Purdue. I don't have any worries for them.
Yeah, who Ohio State just beat by 45.
Exactly. Indiana played actually a really close game against Michigan. It looked closer, I think, than it really was, but
Yeah.
it was a close game on the scoreboard, 20-15. They were kind of dominating it, and then at the end of the game, we see Michigan doing some things. I'm not sure what that says.
Oh, Tendiana. You
Ten-
don't know the meme?
Tendiana
Instead of Indiana,
'cause they're
people
10 and
call them
0.
Tendiana.
I see,
They
because-
were Windiana, and then now they're Tendiana.
Gotcha. So we're just gonna keep making nicknames for
I wonder
Indiana.
if the meme's going to become 11 Indiana because that gets really mouthy.
Yeah,
But
it's a
I
lot.
think at that point, if they do continue to win, because their next game is Ohio State, people are going to be saying a lot more about them than just a meme, anyways.
We won't
So-
be the only ones talking up Indiana. At that
Right.
point. Tennessee beat Mississippi State. We'll talk about that as a super dog here in a little bit, but they do play Georgia next, so that game will have actually a lot of tellingness on the seeding in the SEC,
Well, not only that, but if Georgia loses, that's the third loss.
and they're out.
Likely eliminated
Yep.
from any sort of at-large bid as well.
Exactly. BYU, wow, I can't believe they won that game. That game was so close, and
And controversial.
I was gonna say,
Did you see the AD's?
the hold.
Well, did you see the athletic director's press conference? So athletic directors rarely do a press conference after a game. Usually it's the coach.
Right.
He went on there and was like, "We were enjoying being part of the Big 12, and now we aren't." And
Oh.
like immediately does a huge thing. I'm sure his fine. I'll see if they already gave him one, but
talking about Utah making some controversial calls by the refs.
yeah,
I
that's
get it.
got to be a. Oh, he got a $40,000 fine from the Big 12 already. So
Maybe they should not call holdings that aren't there.
yeah, and that's the big play.
Yeah, that's the first down, and then I believe on the next play, offsides or something like that. Or it was just like
Well,
a couple things
to be
back to
fair,
back.
Utah also didn't score in the second half.
No, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't help
It's
themselves.
very difficult to win when you have zero in
Yeah,
your points
They
column.
definitely didn't help
So,
themselves. I agree with that.
Yeah, I just thought it was hilarious, and AD did that, and actually did what everyone says on like Twitter. This
Mm.
is what I would have done. He actually did it.
I'm gonna let you do this next one.
Yeah, Notre Dame. I'm sorry, I'll keep it short and sweet. I still have Notre Dame in my playoff. One of my hot takes from a while ago. The only notes I put on here was LOL because I wanted to see what Emory would say, but he graciously handed it over.
I deferred.
Um,
52-3, guys. Florida
what?
State is awful.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it is setting up for, or what was that stat I sent y'all? That Florida teams went 0 and 11
Hmm.
in football, and
This
of
last week.
all the various teams.
So
Uh,
sad. I should have. We could have gotten a lot of money out of that.
Now, Virginia is coming off a win over Pittsburgh, which
Yes.
is pretty cool.
Those are
Eli Holstein's injured, so they were on their backup, but either way, big win. Um, that is Notre Dame's next game. They are hosts, though. I don't think they'll have any trouble, but it does make it interesting since Virginia is coming off a pretty good win.
Yeah, both Virginia's teams have actually looked pretty good in Virginia Tech and Virginia.
Yeah,
Alabama, LSU, we just talked about just domination.
yeah.
So we'll see what happens this next week.
Bama's playing Mercer.
Yeah, they're going to win by
Fine.
50
They're win by more than
in the first
the
half.
last one.
And then Ole Miss, who we just talked about with Georgia, Carson Beck sucks. Georgia is the next team at 11. Carson Beck still sucks, and we just I don't know that he sucks. It's just he just doesn't have the talent that he had last year to bail him out, and
Do you
that's
mean like the people around him?
yeah,
Like you
yeah.
were
It's
saying
like
the receiver
you
core
don't have
and
Brock
having
Bowers. You don't have
throw
Brock
the ball
Bowers.
to.
You don't have Lad McConkey.
Yeah.
You don't have A.D. Mitchell was there, but the year before. So it's just
Oh yeah, before he went to Texas.
yeah.
No.
So
fair.
like you just don't have these guys around you that can produce at that level.
Yeah.
And that's kind of really been their Achilles heel because their defense has
100%.
looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Their secondary has actually really not performed. Malachi Starks is one of the best safeties in college football,
Mhm.
possibly a top 10 type of talent. He has not looked like that this
No.
year. So they've actually kind of all underperformed as a whole. And you get beat 28-10 when you underperform.
Yeah.
So, and then Miami. We got finally on
It's
this.
about
That
time.
is it, man. Bold finally. I love
It is
that.
about
I love
time.
that so much. Boy, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just over Miami. All the hype.
I agree.
I can't do it anymore.
It's
I'm glad it's finally over. At
It's
least the
over.
undefeated part.
right. I mean, they won't probably make the playoffs, even if they lose in the ACC championship. I mean, we'll talk about this in a little bit
Yeah.
when we get to conference roundup. But we're about to have a situation where there's 8 teams from 2 conferences making the playoffs, and I don't know that that's what the playoffs were made for. So that's just my take on that for now. But we'll get to that in a minute. Boise State beats a Nevada team that's 3-7. Very close game.
Yeah, that was also a really weird one.
You ready for Nick Nash next week?
I was
Yeah,
I
San
was
Jose
looking
State.
at that one for our Super Dog spoiler. I did not take San Jose State, but I did think about it.
Yeah.
Like, how much do I trust in the Emory Nick Nash connection?
I
Is it
always
worth it?
I always love ex Superdog winners. They, I mean, I feel connected with them.
That's
Like
fair.
they make me like I watch those games. Those games normally mean nothing.
Yeah.
Washington State versus San Jose State, which was a
Right.
close game.
Ended up going to overtime.
Exactly. Almost a win. That was
Yeah.
almost my only win.
Almost had it.
So, but yeah,
Look at
so
that.
Boise State is the Power 5 team at the moment, but Army's not too far behind. So SMU and Texas A&M on bye. Then there's Army,
Yep.
who shut down a North Texas team that
Yeah.
just want to put this out there. North Texas was the number 1 offense in football.
Yeah.
Like Chandler Morris
Chandler
had done
Morris
that
doing
thing,
that.
and they scored 3 points. I think they averaged like 55, and they scored 3 or
Yeah.
50 points, and they scored 3. So Army's defense came to play. Bryson Daly, I believe, was back. So
Yes. And don't forget Army's 21 play, 13-minute, 54-second drive.
that's how you play
That's
football.
beautiful.
That's how
football.
you play football.
That is
right
beautiful
there.
football.
That
They
made
turned on chew clock and put the controller down and said, "Oh, time to hit a play."
yeah, they just
Time
let
to
that
run
one.
another
Yep. And then up next we have Clemson winning. Luckily this week against Vautech. I actually was worried about that game because Vautech's pretty good. So
Yeah, they play close games.
yeah,
I
and
think
then
they have 3 or 4 one-score losses this year, so they're always a team to watch out for.
And then Pittsburgh bounces is next week for Clemson, so that should be interesting. Colorado beats Texas Tech. That was a game that Colorado is an interesting team because they are suspects, but I feel like if they're clicking, they're one of the better offensive teams in the country.
Yeah.
When they're not clicking, though, they look like absolute
Yeah.
it's like
I mean-
paint drying. It's like watching paint dry. It's terrible.
They're built off talent. So
Right.
with the transfers coming in, so you're not going to get the cohesion we've talked about. There, it's harder for them to build that versus like Georgia, where they've been developing this program for the
Right.
last 8 years since Kirby got there.
Yeah.
but they have a new coaching staff. Their defensive coordinator has really elevated that Colorado team compared to last year. But yeah, I mean, they're really good. It just depends on, again, which Colorado you're getting that day.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that Colorado didn't really show up in the first half. They kind of brought it together in the second half more
Yeah.
so. Kind of left Texas Tech at that point.
Right.
Washington State versus Utah State this week. Washington State beats them.
Yep.
They're good. They did lose though, unfortunately, to Boise State early in the year, pretty
Mhm.
convincingly. So that hurts their chances to make the playoffs. But they're a one-loss team coming out of the Pac-12. Them and Oregon State, basically.
Right.
So
When Oregon State's a whole 4-5, so
right. So it means nothing.
they just have no strength of schedule.
Yeah. And then next up, Kansas State was on bye. LSU got walloped by A&M. We're gonna have to talk about that, but they are definitely eliminated.
Bama.
I mean, LSU got walloped by Bama.
Well, they get walloped by both. So.
Right. They are eliminated from the playoffs.
Yes. Yeah, they have to be at this point. There's nothing they can do.
South Carolina beat Vanderbilt very convincingly. We really keep talking about the South Carolina team. I think they're super good.
They just keep improving every week.
Sellers is good, dude. And
Sellers is good when he's not hurt.
and well, it's
Absolutely.
fair. That's called running the ball too much as a quarterback.
Well, that's what I mean. Is his best strength is also his biggest weakness.
Right. And you wrote Pick'em versus Missouri. It's actually -11 to South Carolina. Just so you like. It's -11 to South Carolina right now. And I
wrote that
actually
note before the line came out.
Yeah.
Because I was like 24 versus 23, and I didn't know Brady Cook's status either.
right.
And I still don't.
I actually expect South Carolina to beat Missouri by 2 touchdowns.
If
I
Brady
think
Cook's
that,
injured, I agree.
right. I think that Lenoris Sellers plus Rocket Sanders.
There you go.
Those two guys are so good. Their defensive line, we keep harping on those guys. They're so good at football down there. And Luke Kennard is probably the best player on the field at most. That's his name.
It's not Kyle Kennard.
That's Kyle Kennard. Luke Kennard plays basketball. What am I doing?
Yeah, I was supposed to say he's a good 3-point shooter.
A lefty too, white boy.
A little bit different.
No, Kyle Kennard is a solid football player, and he really makes that defense go.
Can we let Dylan Stewart just go to the NFL early? Because I really don't feel like playing him the next couple of years. He's kind of scary.
Very good. Yeah. They have tons of things going on over there in South Carolina, defensive line wise, though. Missouri does beat Oklahoma this last week. Doesn't really mean that much, but whatever.
It was a fluky win too.
Yeah.
Off some Oklahoma not being able to hold on to the football.
Right. Tulane sneaks in after beating Temple 52-6. They're a 2-loss team at this point. They have actually a shot at making the playoffs.
They do.
So that's
have
something
them on
we
our
will
sheet.
talk about.
Pretty impressive with given that they're coming off Willie Fritz leaving for Houston, and still being able to keep that program winning. I mean, being top 25 is Tulane is pretty impressive.
Got some good football players over there.
Yep.
And then let's go over to our game of the weeks for this next week. Tennessee. See, I put it up there. SC at -11. Only reason I knew that because I had to get it.
I wonder
for the
how
game of
much
the
that'll
weeks.
change with Brady Cook announcement if he plays or not.
It would probably go down to like 3.
Yeah, that's what I would think. It'd be a 1 score, and then it'd be closer to a pick 'em.
Exactly.
Without him, I agree.
And it's at South Carolina. That's another reason they're giving some points that way.
Yeah.
First game up though is Tennessee versus Georgia. I want to hear your lean on this game.
My lean. I'm trying. Where's this game at? I'm trying to remember. I had
This
it written
game
down.
is in Georgia, I believe.
Is it? I thought it was in Rocky
Nope,
Top.
it's at
Georgia.
It's at Georgia. Yes.
Okay. Honestly, if it was in Rocky Top in Tennessee, I would be saying Tennessee by 2 scores.
Oh.
I don't think there's any way Georgia covers 9.
No. Agreed.
But I'm also gonna take Tennessee because it's like Carson back. I think the fans are so dejected that you're not even gonna get the benefit or as much of a benefit as home field advantage. 'Cause
Right.
I think he's lost trust from the fan base.
Okay. Well,
Give me Tennessee.
I will say one thing. I'm trying to find it before I say it. I believe that Tennessee still has the #1 defensive ELO rank.
Oh, yeah, I'll get the efficiencies pulled
okay.
up. I had it pulled up a second ago. I
No
don't know if
worries.
you're going to want those.
Well, since
Efficiencies.
we're talking about it.
Tennessee is #2 behind Texas in defense.
Okay.
And then their offense has moved to 45, so still pretty bad.
Okay. So Tennessee being the number 2 overall defense by efficiency rank.
Yeah.
Carson Beck being bad, the recipe makes a lot of sense. I will
Yeah,
be picking Georgia to win this game, but I think it's more of like a 27-24 type of game.
sure.
And the problem is both offenses have been poor, and I just think that Tennessee's offense has been worse.
Yeah. No,
And
absolutely.
I'm picking the fact that both of these, it's a must-win game for Georgia.
Yes.
So that's also a thing at home with a solid defense
No, absolutely.
going up against another team that has offensive issues with solid defense. I'm
Hmm.
taking the home team in that situation, but it should be a pick 'em. It should not
Totally
be
fair.
minus 9,
I'm
in my
shocked by
personal
this.
opinion.
Oh, and it's because everyone on Tennessee is injured. Samson got injured. Nico got injured. Not enough to be out, from what I've
I believe they're
understand.
playing.
I think they're all going to play. Everyone who's injured. But I bet that's why the betting line on a Monday is at 9. By Friday, that's probably a lot closer.
So get on it now if you see this video.
Absolutely.
And then the next game is going to be Clemson versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is not ranked. Let me grab that. But yeah, this game, bang.
While you're doing that, I'm going to say
I
give
already
me
did it.
Clemson.
Yeah.
Because Eli Holstein being out, Pitt has looked like a completely different team since then, and they don't look like they're improving at all with Yarnell. So
Yeah,
I think this game would have been fun 2 weeks ago when we talked about it, but now it's lost its luster.
yeah, I'm a big Eli Holstein fan, and it was really tough to watch. The fact that he hasn't played, especially in the most important games of their season.
Yeah.
So that really hurts my thoughts on this game because I really wanted to see him play. I really wanted to see
Yeah.
Pitt challenge a really good Clemson team,
Oh,
who you said and is one of your hot takes to make the playoffs. I don't know that that's going to happen now. We'll have to have
yeah.
that conversation a
Well,
little
they
bit.
had to blow it against Louisville, so
They did.
here we are now.
But Louisville's good. Louisville's
Yeah.
top 25. That
Yeah.
is possible resume keeper because they've
Yeah.
lost to Georgia, who they need to beat Tennessee, truly, and then they lost to Louisville, who we
Yeah.
just talked about. So that's an interesting game. The next game, obviously, minus 11. If you want to get it in now and you think that Missouri has a better chance, go ahead. They have the opportunity to fall to probably closer to like -4, but I think that South Carolina is going to run up the score.
Yeah, I think so. With Brady Cook out, I would gladly take South Carolina.
I just think they're better.
Yeah.
I just think they're better everywhere, and I think Missouri has been the most like. I know Florida State was the worst top 10 team in possibly history,
Given the
preseason,
record now, that would be correct.
preseason and top 10 history. But I will say that Missouri is probably one of my second, third picks for this year alone because I just think Missouri has been so poor on offense with the talent that they have.
I would put them at third this year, only because Florida State and Michigan have been much more underwhelming.
Was Michigan top 10? Were
Weren't
they?
they?
I
thought
don't
they were-
remember.
I thought. Or here, we can pull it up.
Yeah, just go. Let's go grab it
Get
real
that
quick.
pulled it up.
Yeah.
While you pull up the next thing.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Green Wave, the Tulane Green Wave going up against Navy. This is a big game, and it's on Game of the Weeks because both of these teams are 1 or 2 loss teams that are in a situation where Tulane wins, they get an opportunity to play for this for the national title if they make the playoffs.
Yes.
And it's a long shot. It's a long shot, but it's
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
And then you look at the other side with Navy. Navy is a 7-2 team that has an opportunity to still make their conference championship and play against the other academy in the Army. So I think it's a big deal.
Michigan started at 9, Florida State started at 10, and Missouri started at 11. Interestingly enough,
Wow, I thought Missouri was higher than that for some reason.
I think nobody really started paying attention until after the Florida State game
Yeah,
or week 0.
Week 0,
quote unquote.
right.
So they were top 10 after that.
I see.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. But yeah, so big falls from some of these teams though. Big deal. I just don't expect this to happen every year where we have a 1-8 Florida State team.
No, we'll talk about that on a later episode.
Yeah.
Once we have more time to get into them specifically, because what a year it's been.
But yeah, Tulane at Navy is going to be one of our game of the weeks, and I'm excited
Yep.
for it.
No, that'll be super fun to watch.
And then let me stop sharing real quick and switch us over. We're going to be going to our picks recap that has gone honestly pretty well for us this last week. I believe we were 3-1, like you had said, which is solid. Let me grab it. There we go. This is actually our record for the year. We try to keep pace. We didn't start this till week 3 because we didn't actually do this video until week 3.
Right.
As you can see, though, our total record is 20-13-1. Dustin's super dogs are not as good as mine. That's just going to be out there. But he did
But
save it.
two of mine have won outright, though.
Oh my gosh. Yes, you are correct. They did win outright. But you did save it with your shorts. You are 11-6-1 during the shorts. Going down to week 11, we have this week we had Army beating UNT 14-3, and then BYU. That is wrong. BYU winning Utah, but by 1. So that was a very close game. And then our super dogs, dude. We killed it this week.
Yeah, we did great on super dogs.
We absolutely killed it this week. Mississippi State, Tennessee was not necessarily close, but it wasn't 23.5. It was 19, I believe, 33-14. And then Ball State on a Tuesday, losing by 7.
You
That's
got
what
to
I'm
do what
talking
you
about.
got to do sometimes. You got to just really throw a super dog out there and hope for the best.
Well, I believe that playing on Tuesday's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that a big thing is when a team has played on a early week game multiple weeks,
Yeah.
they have a step up on the competition for that reason.
I mean,
They
everyone else is planning for Saturday, and they're like, we've done this.
Ball State is actually playing on Tuesday again this week.
I was actually wondering, in prepping the show, I was like, I wonder if he's going to go for it back-to-back weeks.
I was thinking about it because like then they're playing every 7 days.
Yeah.
And other teams are playing like in a weird schedule.
Oh, they're 4.5 point dogs.
I know. That's why I did
that
not.
one.
Yes, that is exactly right. Maybe no, you can't even get it out on the short sheet because it's so early in the week. So
Yeah, I think I'm going to pass on that anyways.
but yeah,
A little unpredictable.
right. Then we're gonna go to our conference roundup post week 11 here. Look at all these teams up in here, man, and all this red. There's just
Yeah, I extended the SEC one because it's just more fun to talk about the what ifs,
right.
and also to compare. So real quick, the big one that's going to step up is LSU. 21.9% chance to make the playoff last week, 7.7 to win the conference, all the way down to 6.7 and 3.5 respectively. So they need the absolute biggest domino effect you could think of.
They're gonna need
pull it off
to win. I believe they'll probably need to win the conference at this point, and it's just really tough.
They will, but the problem is there's 5 teams above them now.
Yes.
6.
Yes, and not just that. It's like they have to they need Alabama to win out. They need certain teams to do well, and they also have to not make the conference championship. Those teams can't make the conference championship. Type of thing.
There are 7 teams in front of them in the SEC.
Yes.
And they're only a 2-loss team in the conference as far as conference games goes.
Yeah, they're the bottom of the 2-loss teams right now. Missouri is actually the team above them. They're at 8.1% to make the playoffs. Barely nothing to make the championship, conference championship. But the teams that are still staying ahead, Texas, Alabama, and Tennessee, I am so surprised by the odds on Georgia at 73.4.
Well, we said the same with Bama still being above 50, even after the second loss.
But they're about to play Tennessee. How do they both have a 73% chance?
Yeah.
Someone explain it.
I don't understand that part. I think what ESPN has said is they're all individually made, and they don't imply the odds of the other teams that they would have to beat in order to get there.
I see.
So, they won't do one of them being higher than the other. These are both based off separate universes of each wins the game.
I see.
That's why.
Okay. Well, that makes a little bit more sense.
So
I wish there was an if-then
one
statement.
will drop off a cliff after this week,
Right.
and the other will stay about where they are.
Well, I don't think Tennessee drops off the cliff because they would only be a 2-loss team at that point. So they would be an 8-2 team.
Yeah, I mean, they'd probably drop in the 50s. They'd still be above 50.
Exactly.
Georgia would probably drop to
They
the
would
30s.
actually drop off a cliff.
Yeah.
ACC football, Miami still has great odds to make it, and SMU's odds are 38.1. I think SMU should be ahead because of the fact that they played in they lost a game against a much better team.
Yeah.
They lose to BYU by 3, while Miami loses to Virginia.
And early in the year.
Right, exactly.
So,
And then Miami loses to Virginia.
Georgia Tech.
Oh my gosh, why do I keep saying Virginia? Who did Virginia just beat? Why am I tripping?
They
They beat
Pitt.
Clemson. Oh, you're
They
right.
beat Pitt.
Golly, I got to get it all together, man. I'm all
Clemson
over the
still has a
place.
17.3% chance to make the
Thanks, Dustin.
playoffs
Thank you,
and a
Dustin.
9.5% chance to win the conference and make my hot take look great, which just got a lot hotter, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure.
Or cold. Maybe it's really cold now.
Could be
Not
as bad as mine.
not sure yet.
Right.
The Texas State
The
one.
Texas. And then the Big Ten is just gonna have everybody in the playoffs. No big deal.
At this point, it seems like they all are. I think all four make it.
And this is something we'll talk about here in a second because I do want to go back to this. But yeah, Big Ten, 4 teams. Big 12, probably one team.
I don't see a way it's less or more than one.
Colorado has to win the
It would have to be
championship.
Colorado beating BYU in a close game in the conference championship, and that means Colorado has to have a way to get there.
There's two scenarios I want to talk about after we get to our non-power fours. Notre Dame at 65.7%. That is Dustin's other hot take. That is much colder than Clemson at the moment. And then Boise State, Army. They're basically fighting over that first spot,
Yeah.
Power 5, non-Power 5.
Essentially, why they add up to about
96%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the others are going to be around less than 10, basically,
Yeah.
to fill in the gaps.
Tulane at 6%. Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns are at
Yeah.
8.6%. But I do want to go over have this conversation real quick. We're gonna have a situation where, no matter what, we're gonna get, of course, the non-power 5 teams. So there's 11 teams from there. At this point, right now, it looks like there are 8 teams from 2 conferences that are going to make the playoffs. 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten. I think that is bad. Like, I don't appreciate when we're trying to make this playoff expanded and make it an opportunity for teams to have a Cinderella chance and get in,
Mhm.
and we have 8 of them in the 2 conferences, in the 2 big conferences.
Yeah.
Like, the Big 12 is going to get 1 team, like you just said.
I mean, well, the problem is it's one of those ideally in our heads as fans. Yeah, we wanted to have more parity, kind of like we had at the beginning of the year. But at the same time, when Tech is going to go and upset Iowa
Right.
State, and then Iowa State's going to shoot themselves in the foot again, and then Kansas State's going to decide, yeah, we're just not going to show up a couple weeks either. I don't. I would much rather watch Tennessee or Georgia in that game as a
Right.
third team from the SEC than either of them as a second team from the Big 12.
Right. And I think that the resume situation is terrible, and we actually have a complete thing about their resume
Yeah.
that we'll talk about here in a second. But it's my problem is, like, we're gonna have basically these same teams playing each other again that we've already seen play each other. We could have a situation where if A&M beats Texas at the end of the year, that in the last game of the year, those 2 teams play again in Austin.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
right after that in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's a thing. I guess my problem with it is we should just have a little more parity, and this is a bad year for that parity based on talent and where it is right now.
The way I look at it is I want the best teams playing each other. And if that just happens to be the teams that are perennially good, well, that is what it is. But we also get this opportunity of, like, Indiana is going to make the playoff this year, more than likely, assuming some mega
Right.
collapse doesn't happen.
Well, they deserve it.
100%, but that's what I'm saying is, like, last year, for instance, in a 14 playoff, we go, wow, Indiana's doing so good. It was the Florida State effect, basically.
Yeah, the 6 team.
Of course, that changed because of the injury, and they probably would have gotten in above Texas, blah, blah, blah. But with an injury, committee felt they didn't need to. In the 12 team, there's going to be no excuse. If Indiana loses to Ohio State, as we expect them to, probably keep it close, though. Even if Curtis Work got hurt again or that thumb injury was bothering him,
Right.
they're still probably going to get the 11 or 12 seed. And we get to see Indiana, of all teams, in playoff action and not contain a basketball, which is
Well, yeah, and
something we never
I
expected.
think we like March Madness because it's so there's so much madness, right?
100%.
We're talking about basketball, but
Right.
like we love it because there is so much madness. There are teams, and I'm not saying like you should put Colorado against Georgia in the first round and just expect Colorado to win,
Right.
or Alabama in the first round, expect them to win. It's just the fact that we want football, good football
Right.
around, and it doesn't have to be SEC and Big Ten teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this is why the last couple of years we've heard about realignment and these specific conferences doing this, because they've kind of already figured themselves out of, hey, no matter how much we expand it, we already know what the 2 big conferences are.
Yeah.
And we're going to pay a lot of money Even was it Florida State is suing the ACC? Of
Yes.
course, the year they sue their own conference, they decide they don't want to play sports anymore. Anyways, which did not help
our
their
swim
case.
team is on the field.
Yeah, you didn't help your case there. But that being said, it does make the whole conference realignment, and I'm not a fan of doing the whole, hey, two big mega conferences and they be their own league at this point.
Right.
But I mean, that's why the joke is there.
No, for sure.
It's happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. The other thing I want to talk about is this is a fun situation. Let's say that Colorado beats BYU in the conference championship.
Yeah.
Colorado is the 12 seed and Boise State's the 4 seed. Think about it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I had been thinking about that with how good Boise State is.
That would be how it goes, right? You don't put Colorado at 4. You put Boise State at 4 over them.
I would agree, probably.
So, yeah. Okay, cool.
Assuming they don't beat BYU by 25 or something.
Right, but
It would depend.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But also, Boise State, unblemished, only losses to a Oregon number
team.
1 overall
By
by 3
right?
points. Yeah, I think that you have to kind of consider
Yeah.
that situation where Colorado has lost to Nebraska.
Yeah. And it wasn't a good game.
No, they got smoked by Nebraska. So let's just say that happens. I think Boise State's the number 4 seed, and I love that. I think that
Probably.
is the best parody of this situation that we've had, how we built this whole thing, is that Boise State is the 4 seed.
Oh, imagine Boise State at 4, you put Indiana at 5, and then Colorado at 12. That'd
Wow.
be awesome.
That would be epic. I don't believe that 5 will be Colorado. I mean, will be Indiana.
No,
for
but
the
it'd
fact
be
that
really funny.
Oregon is playing football still.
Oh, I forgot Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana.
How about
and Penn State.
an
Good Lord.
Oregon Boise State rematch in the second round?
That would be fun and
That would be
probably happen.
Yeah,
we're kind of on a
exactly.
crash course for something like that to occur. And prior to Georgia falling apart, them versus Texas rematch was probably going to happen.
Right.
Too. But now that's to be seen.
Yeah, for sure.
My favorite thing on about the FPI here is that Colorado's chance to win the conference is higher than their chance to make the playoffs.
Right.
So I would love to hear their equation on that, of how that math works out.
Very interesting.
Same with Iowa State. It's quite literally impossible for them to make the playoff without winning the championship.
You got
based
me,
on
man.
the odds.
You got me.
But also, how can their odds
They're saying
be
that
higher of championship
you know what?
and not
I
playoff?
I think I know why. I think they're saying that the Big 12 is so bad that there are two conferences lower than them, say Army and Boise State, that are going to make it over them. That would have to be the only reason, right? So basically, Army is ranked currently, I believe, above Colorado, where they are. They're at 16, and Colorado is at 18. So Army actually gets in as the 5th conference team.
Is it not Power 4 and the highest group of 5?
I believe it's the top 5 conference, and we should check.
Let me see. Yeah, I want to check
Top 5
real
conference
fast.
champions is what I think the wording is. So they would actually be the next team in, which would make sense
Interesting.
for the percentages.
That makes
here.
more sense now. Yeah, I actually didn't know. I just assumed, I think, that it was the top or Power 4 and then Group of 5. I knew that the Group of 5 could be one of the top 4.
Right.
If they happen to be better, like we were just talking about.
Like Boise State here.
Yeah, it looks like you're right. It's just the 4 highest, and this is from NCAA.com. The 4 highest ranked conference champions will be seeds number 1 through 4 and receive a first round bye.
And then the 5th highest ranked conference champion should be put in order, basically. If they're 11th, they'd be 11th. If they're 15th, though, they would be 12th.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The new 12-team playoff will include the 5 highest ranked conference champions.
Perfect. So, we could have a situation where there is no Big 12 champion that gets in. And that means we might have 0 Big 12 teams. 0.
So the easiest scenario to bring up then would be BYU and Colorado both drop a game.
Yes.
And then Colorado still beats BYU in the conference championship. And Army beats Notre Dame, for instance.
Right.
And wins out.
That would be a situation
Them
where
and
Army
Boise
actually, I think, is
State.
4th in that situation.
Them or Boise State.
I think Army's 4th over
I think you
Boise
have
State.
to if they go undefeated and beat Notre Dame. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree.
So, but scenarios.
either way.
But the cool thing is we could have no Big 12 teams because it could be both Army and Boise State making it, and that's actually a crazy scenario to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great take to look at. I mean, we have the percentages, but we should
Um,
really look into that.
Felt like that
Um,
meme where it's all the math moving around the
that's
lady's head.
basically,
That's how I felt trying to
or Zach,
talk through
Zach
that.
Galifianakis, where he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's go on to our excuse me, our winners and losers. This is actually our winner. I know that you're going to be like, well, they lost,
Yeah.
so why are they on the winners sheet?
Oh yeah.
The Miami Hurricanes are our biggest winner. Just kidding. America is the
Yes.
winner.
America's the biggest winner because Miami lost.
Yes, because we needed this. Miami should not be undefeated this year. They
No.
have okay. First off, they were should have lost to Cal. Cal was up by shoot a lot. I think it was 28.
28. It was
28.
38 to 10.
Yeah, 28 on Cal. Did not score in the second half. Got beat. Virginia Tech was bullshit. Just to say the least. It
They
was
should have,
a
yeah.
stolen game by the refs, in my personal opinion.
If that game is in Virginia Tech and that same call happens, I
Completely
guarantee
different.
Virginia Tech has a W next to their name on it.
And then you look at the Louisville game. That game was close all the way.
Yeah.
Duke was up by. Thank you, Dustin, for this, but they were up by 13, I believe.
Hey, I admitted the jinx last episode.
Yeah, well, if I have to, if I have to own up to things, you do too on this one.
Dang it.
Georgia Tech, though, I'm spoiling that, and I love it for them. I love Haynes King for that.
Yes.
At least they can beat Florida State and Miami for me.
Yeah.
It's not just Florida State.
No.
And then so that was our biggest winner, America. And then our biggest loser is what we just talked about, actually. The Big 12 college football resume.
No.
BYU has a terrible, actually, their resume is not pretty. They almost lose to Utah, which is, I mean, Utah's good, don't get me wrong, but it's not.
Well,
They
it's
don't
also,
they don't have Cam
I was going
Rising.
to say Cam Rising-less Utah.
Well, yeah, but they've gotten better with their quarterback as he's come in and played
Sure.
for a while. But they have no ranked teams on their resume that they've played, other than, of course, they beat SMU and then they beat Kansas State earlier in the year.
Yeah.
But Kansas State hasn't looked good. SMU has looked great. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. That is
Yeah.
that by far their best win, but it was a 3-point game. So it's just I think this is BYU has a tough resume. Colorado didn't isn't helping themselves out by losing to teams like Nebraska, who we just talked about.
Yep.
The Iowa State Cyclones dropping 2 games in a row. Kansas State, I believe they got beat by somebody
One was
really
BYU.
bad, really bad. BYU 38-9,
Yeah.
and then Houston last week. So
Yeah.
it's just no one has a good resume,
Nope.
and there's a reason we're talking about them possibly completely missing the college football playoffs.
That would actually be hilarious.
That
if
would
the
be
first year Texas and
amazing.
OU leave to go, and then they just completely whiff.
Yes, I would be actually kind of amazing. I would not be mad about that
No,
because
I will be ecstatic if that happens.
that would be the perfect ending to a year, honestly, for everybody. Well, basically for the Big 12. I mean, BYU is a Pac-12 team. Colorado's a Pac-12 team. Those are the Arizona State. Those 3 teams are in the top 3
Yeah.
in this conference.
Well, remember Colorado left the Big 12 to the Pac-12,
Right.
and then came back,
Of course.
and then now they're, doing this.
Yeah. So this is a conference in turmoil, and we hope that craziness happens. We want chaos like Cameron.
Yeah,
'Cause
I'm
Cam-
a big fan of chaos.
Cam definitely put this out there that the other day, and of course we agreed with him, but by natural like you can't just pick random teams to beat other good teams. Like if they're not as good, they're just probably going to lose, and that's what we should believe. But there are a ton of situations where it's 40-60%. 40%'s a lot.
Yeah.
And so we do expect chaos sometimes. Chaos is like Utah beating BYU this last week if they could have pulled that off. Things like that.
Yeah, would have been great if they did.
Then we would have had even more chaos. But yes, so Big 12 conference is kind of all over the place, and we will continue to monitor it as we get closer to the college football playoff. The next thing on our board is going to be, I'm sorry, let me grab it. We did the conference roundup. Oh, we're in Super Dogs.
Yep.
Cool. You want to go first?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, when I texted Emory this morning, my super dog of Arkansas, covering against Texas, it was plus 16 and a half.
Yes.
In the several hours between that, Emery texted me, no, it's not. And I looked and it had dropped all the way to 13 and a half.
Big difference.
Um,
Sure.
do you think it's from Taylor Green having a probable injury report?
Yeah. So
So,
4 hours ago was when that got released.
so that's why it jumped because of Taylor Green. What about Jaquindon Jackson? I think he's playing too.
I
And that's
believe so.
probably
Yes.
why.
So both of them
I
in.
mean, they're a fun team. Like I said earlier, I was kind of hinting at it that they're so hot and cold. Um, yeah, I want to take Arkansas plus 13 and a half, even with it dropping, getting closer. It's hard to win in Arkansas. It's an
Mhm.
11 a.m. game, so it's hard to get, or I don't know. I've never played college football,
It's not
but
as easy.
from what I can tell, it seems very difficult. It's difficult as a fan to get hyped up for a game. I couldn't imagine as a player. So, I think it'll be a fun game. I don't think it'll be a big game. I think Arkansas will cover it.
Perfect.
I'm going with that.
I will say yes. The earlier games are hard. We used to like when I played, it would be a 7 o'clock game, like for like 6 weeks straight, and
Yeah.
then it would turn into if daylight savings would happen. It'd be like October,
Yeah.
something like that, and November, and it would be a little bit colder. And everybody was like, okay, well now we're gonna play 1 o'clock games.
Yeah.
And that first 1 o'clock game is so hard to get in because you
Yeah.
practice at 5:30, or
Sure.
3:30, and you go out much later.
Sure.
So it's definitely a difficult time of day to play at for the first game at least. I don't know. After that, you get more used to it, of course.
Right.
But yeah. And like you said, it's hard to play in Arkansas. I don't disagree with that. I think that this is a solid pick. Texas has been pretty good though.
Very good.
Pretty good. So
Very good team.
yeah, let's go to mine. I am going to share this. There we go. I'm going to be picking the San Diego State Aztecs. I was jumping around on this pick. There's not a ton of really good super dogs this week, but with San Diego State, let me scroll up so you can see it. They are 20.5 point underdogs at the moment. That number is reasonable for how good UNLV is. Don't get me wrong, but UNLV also has played very close games in the last few weeks. They have all 5 of these games would have been considered covers on the 20.5 situation.
Yep.
Also, San Diego State has played close games against everybody but Boise State, who also beat UNLV.
Which we expect Boise State to do that to teams.
Yeah, I mean, Boise State against UNLV was a closer game, but UNLV has one of the better rushing offenses in football
yeah.
right now. I think that this game is closer though than the line says it is. It is a 9:30 game, which is one of the best times to play football because that's, honestly, funny enough, that the later it gets, the more fun football gets, I think, personally.
Just get a halftime coffee or something. Little
No,
latte,
no,
time
I'm
to wake up.
I'm pumped at 9:30, I swear.
Yeah,
But
but what about at 11 when you're going down?
I'm still pumped.
I would hope
I
so.
never slow down.
I'm glad to hear the team I support at night is not going, you know what, might be nap time.
No, yeah. No, but they also, this is Pac-12 teams. This is a 7:30 game for them, of course, start-wise. But no, these are like the late night games. I think are the best times to play football.
Yeah.
I think they're the most fun types of games. You get the lights, you get the dark, you get the sky underneath the lights, and then you get going. And I think it's the best time to play football.
And one big thing to notice here is we're kind of at the point of the year where these 6-loss teams are make or break as far as making a bowl game.
Right.
And that has recruiting implications. Money for the school, donor implications, all the stuff we don't really like to talk about, but we have to know it's there and kind of needs to be understood.
Yes.
So I mean, San Diego State's going to come out playing with we got nothing to lose, quite literally. I mean,
Right.
It's either we win or the season's over anyways. So
Yep. So they've also lost 3 in a row, and they've been close games for, New Mexico and Washington State. So I think if they're going to continue playing close games, sooner or later they're going to pull one off, and I think it's here.
happens eventually.
I don't know that I think they're going to win. I will not be taking the money line on this one, though.
Let's say we're gonna have a repeat of the Duke one. I was like, you're taking the money line?
We will not have a repeat on that. But yeah, so that's our last thing. We always kind of end with our super dogs.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get 2 more this week, just like we did last week, and hopefully we can get more picks. So y'all
We'll get an outright win.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Well, we'll see. Not me.
Yours is gonna
yeah.
be a little bit tougher than mine, but we'll
For sure.
see. It'll be fun.
But we appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Please please like, comment, and subscribe to this video. We appreciate y'all when y'all do that because it helps our algorithm. It gets more people to get our outreach and see this video, and we get to talk to more people and have more conversations. But yeah, we really appreciate it. And
Yeah, thank y'all for coming. We'll see y'all next week.
yep, bye y'all.